Welcome to Watch and Learn. Today we are going to continue on with the Around the Block mystery quilt. I'm Kristina Whitney, a studio educator here at Handi Quilter, and
I'm Kim Sandberg, studio educator at Handi Quilter.
Okay, part 2 of the Around the Block mystery quilt.
I know.
We're going to focus on rulers today.
Yeah, we're going to start quilting. I'm excited. Yeah, rulers. Usually this is Kristina's thing, so I'm actually really excited to play around with them a little bit.
Yep.
So I've got my quilt, like it's basted, ready to start stitching. Let's just do a quick review of some of the designs that I'm going to quilt.
Okay.
We're going to start with, we've actually got the whiteboard set up here. I'm going to start with the line grid ruler. This one is really great to make piano keys with. And I want to do some piano keys up in the, top border. So let me show everybody how to use this ruler. So let's come over here to the whiteboard. And this actually is a pretty fun ruler, the way it's set up. It's great for straight lines. Okay, so I'm going to be quilting inside a border here. So I've got my 2 lines. So this is the bottom seam. Okay. And then this is the top edge of my quilt. And it's okay if I quilt off the top edge of my quilt. Now, here's a little tip when you're quilting with the line grid ruler. Whichever direction you're moving in, you want to have the notch be on the other side, so that as you're quilting, you're not bumping against that notch. Sometimes it'll give you a little bit of a wobble in your stitch. So I'm going to start here and do my first line down. And when I hit this seam here at the bottom, I'm going to pause and shift the ruler over, stitch across the bottom there, come up. Now, because I want these piano keys to go clear off the top, I'm going to stitch off that edge. Go over, come back down, pause, shift, over, up. Pretty easy. Okay, so let's go to the machine and do some stitching on this one. Okay, so Kristina, if you want to
you want the machine?
Scoot the machine down here to me.
Try not to get it caught in your basting.
Okay, so first thing you always want to do before you start stitching is do some tension testing. Now, last time I talked about how I'm going to be using a lot of different threads on this. So I just want to show everybody, this is how I test my tension. I just have some scraps of fabric that I put over here to the side, and then I just come right on over and do a little tension test. I'll go ahead and pull up my bobbin thread here, and I'm going to stitch a little circle and something with some points on it so I can test my tension there and take a look at it. It actually looks pretty good. And I'll take a second and I'll even flip it over and look at it on the bottom. It looks, yep, it looks good. So I don't know if you guys can see, if we'll flip that up so you can actually see.
And again, busy back.
The thread, yes, you can see it's a very busy back. The thread is really blending right there, so it's a little bit hard to see, but my tension's good. Every time I change my thread, I am going to do a little bit of a tension test there, because the last thing I want to do is get done, roll my quilt up, and have some issues.
Can I throw out some tips there?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so for our viewers, if you're going to be changing threads a lot, it's a good idea once you've set that tension for, say, okay, I'm using this beige 501, I'm going to write down the tension number.
Yes.
Because you're going to use that again probably somewhere later on in the quilt.
Absolutely.
And you can just go back to that number as your base to get going again.
Exactly.
So keep those numbers recorded. Also, another tip, if you're going to be changing the bobbin color to match your top, which we talked earlier in the previous video,
I'll be doing it
a little bit here and there.
At least within the same shade. Yeah.
But you can get multiple bobbin cases and just tension each color of bobbin with that bobbin case, and just swap out the bobbin case rather than retensioning each time you change the bobbin color.
Exactly. So. And luckily I have a couple of those at home, so I will definitely be using that as I'm working on this some more. Okay, so like we always talk about, I do have, you guys can see I've got my ruler base on here. We always want to have our ruler base on. And I have my Sherpa on here, so I've got that higher profile. So we're going to go ahead and scoot on over here. We just slide that through right there, and then I'm inside of that channel. And once again, I want to make sure, so I'm going to be moving in this direction, This slot is this way. I'm actually going to rotate the ruler, so I will be quilting against this side as I go.
Okay.
All right.
And just a reminder, when you're putting that slot ruler on and when you're sliding it over, the needle does need to be in that up position.
Yes, yes. It's hard to do the other way. Okay, on my screen, I have my settings. I'm at 12 stitches per inch, and I'm going to put myself in cruise, and then I'm actually going to take this down to a very low cruise. I'm going to set it
I'm
at
going to get a picture of
50.
that.
Yeah, go ahead right there. So I've got 12 stitches per inch, cruise at 50, and then very important, I'm going to set so that my needle's down. So anytime I stop stitching, my needle will be in the down position.
And I noticed also you've got Pro Stitcher, but you've got your gears disengaged.
Yes, that little purple right there, very important. I want to be able to move the machine freely. So, okay, I'm going to start right here on the edge, and I'm going to move this down. I've got to be sure and keep the edge of this ruler right here, that 1/4 inch away, so I can come down and stitch to here, to that edge, move over, up, pause, move my ruler over, scoot it over that 1/4, come over, down, pause, move, and you notice I stop the machine anytime I'm moving my ruler, and go up. So this is, and I just broke my own rule there.
I wasn't going to say anything.
We'll stop. Oh, and I've got a little bit of handy grip there. That was getting caught on my batting, yeah. Really great on fabric to keep it there. Okay, stop and move over. So I think you guys are all catching the drift here. Yeah. So I'm going to keep doing this all the way across this quilt so that I will have these great piano keys. So let's pull this up here and everybody can see. We'll go ahead and scoot that over. I've got those piano keys there. Now, I'm gonna Kristina gave me a challenge last time and she wanted me to do a different design inside each one of these, but I'm gonna start it down here. I'm gonna do it in this section because I've got a different fabric. So I don't have to do it all the way across the top of the quilt. Is that okay?
I guess we'll let that slide.
Okay. So we'll let that one slide. Thank you. We'll work on that one. Okay, so let's take a look at the next thing I'm going to do. And I'm not going to take this one to the board because this one's kind of self-explanatory. I'm just going to go ahead and bring the machine back down here. Now I want to stitch in the ditch between each one of these different rows here. So I'm going to use my ditch ruler and just line this up. This is really great because you line up the little edges of the ruler.
I'm going to get them really close there.
You see how that's right there on the edge? And that way I'm going to be exactly that 1/4 inch away. And then I'm going to just go ahead and stitch across. And that way I'll get that nice stitch in the ditch that I want all the way across. I'll go to the end of the ruler, stop, and adjust.
Do you have a preference on having the ruler behind the foot or in front of the foot when you're stitching in the ditch?
You know, it just kind of depends. Honestly, I did it this way because I wanted to have a clearer view for everybody, holding it here. But it honestly doesn't matter. Sometimes when I'm moving this way across the quilt, doing stitch in the ditch, I think it's a little easier to hold it behind, but yeah, either way works.
Personal preference.
Yep, personal preference. Okay, so I'm going to be doing stitch in the ditch between each one of these rows as I'm going down to anchor everything and keep it in place. So let's go ahead and cut my thread real quick because we're going to move on to a different design. So I've got a couple of other rulers here, Kristina. I've got my Ripple Wave and I've got my Multi-clams. Which one do you want me to use first? Do you have a preference?
Let's go with the Multi-clam.
Okay, Multi-clams. So we're going to do some Multi-clams in this row right here. Now we're starting to run into where my basting is here. Now I want to pull out the basting stitch along here, but I want to keep the basting stitch in these sections over here for when I turn the quilt.
So you're taking out the horizontal ones, leaving in the vertical.
Yep,
Well, not the vertical basting, but
the
basting in the vertical strips.
Exactly. So I'm going to clip this here, and then I'm going to just pull this out, and I'm going to show you guys a little trick. To make sure that I cut my bobbin on the back, I just take and pull that up right there, and it pulls up my bobbin thread, and I can clip that after I've pulled a couple of stitches out. And that way, as I lift this here, you can see that I'm pulling out that bobbin as I go, which is really important. You want to make sure that you are not leaving in bobbin thread on the back, right, Kristina?
Yeah, because then your machine's going to catch on it, and it's going to pull everything, and it's not going to be pretty.
Issues. And when you hit a point where it's starting to kind of, it's too much thread, just clip that thread and then just keep going, and you can pop that bobbin thread up again. So that's my little trick. I'll just do that much for right now.
Okay.
And we'll come back here and do some stuff with the multi-clam. So let's take this to the whiteboard, and I'll show everybody what my idea was for what I'm going to stitch here, and we'll stitch some of it out and see how it looks.
So multi-clam shell, let's see what you're going to do.
Yeah. So once again, I'm going to draw my 2 lines so that we kind of know about the size that I'm working in. So the border I'm working in on this one is a little bit narrower. So I'm going to do a multi-clam, go across. I'm going to pause, move it, my ruler over, and then do another one. And I'll just keep doing that going across.
Okay.
Okay. Now there's actually a guideline right there that you line up. You can use these guidelines to line up your seams to keep that nice. So when I get to the other end, I'm going to turn around, and I want to do a little arch inside here.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is travel back along this stitch in the ditch line, and then I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, put it here in the center, and do that little second part. Move it over, travel, and do this one.
I love how you show how you can travel instead of breaking your thread for each one of those.
Exactly, exactly. So we'll try that, and then we can maybe decide if we want to put a little something inside those, a little woot woot, or something like that.
A little what?
Woot woot. Hey, Kristina's not the only one that can do sound effects for stitching. So I'm going to keep using the same thread. I feel like this is a good blender. This is 402 from So Fine from Superior Threads. And because I'm actually starting inside the quilt on this one, I'm going to do a little tie off. When I started up here before I started off the quilt, so I didn't bother doing a tie off because
it's going to get cut off.
It's going to get cut off anyway. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to line this up.
Okay,
I can use that.
I want to see what you're lining up.
So this line right there, that etched line right there, is what I'm going to line up on the bottom, right there on that seam on the bottom. Okay?
Perfect.
And then I'm going to just go ahead and stitch. We'll see if I can not go out for ice cream. Mission accomplished. And we'll pop this one over. Go ahead and do the next one. Get that right there. Move that thread out of the way. Let's go ahead and do one more. Okay, so I'm liking the way that that's looking. Let's go back. We're going to work our way back through here and put my little one on the inside. Okay, now this one, I'm going to have to kind of eyeball it a little bit. Scoot over.
So you're using that same etching on your seam line?
Yep. Just to put that little bit in there. Okay, actually, I think that looks kind of fun, huh?
Now, what about for people that aren't comfortable traveling in that ditch without...
You know what?
Something there.
If you're not comfortable, you could absolutely have like your ditch ruler right there that you could just pull over, and you could stitch over as far as you need to. Slide that other ruler back in. Don't be afraid to use more than one ruler when you're working on a design. Just give yourself a little bit of some credit, and just know that rulers take a little more time, but you get that precision, so it's worth it. We're going to go up this way.
Yeah, ruler work is not a race.
No, it's not a race. So I'm liking the way that that looks. I probably do need to add a little more in. So the question is, I had actually drawn some out where we did another one that crossed over like this, or crosses over the same way. Which one do you think we should try?
I say you just do it totally random, and then you don't have to worry about lining things up.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is come over here, and I'm going to travel up this side and then start going across. And you know what? I totally love your, let's not make it perfect. Okay, and I did grab my ditch ruler here just to travel up that seam a little farther.
Ooh, you could even change which size circle you use along there.
Oh, hey, okay.
Let's make it as crazy as we can.
Let's do. Okay, so we're going to start with 2. Well, I'll make it as crazy. I like this. We're just going to have some fun with it. So we're going to do the 2 and stop, and then let's roll over and let's do the 3. What if we do these progressively? I think this could be kind of fun. So I just want this quilt to be fun. And then we'll go to the 4.
So I love this multi-clamshell ruler because you've got those 4 different sizes all in one ruler. You can do so many fun things with it.
I know. I love that trick of doing a swirl with it. It's really fun. Okay, so let's come back again, and once again, so this side's going to be structured, this side isn't, but I still want to have that inside. So we'll come back along here. I'll do the stitch along there.
And are you going to just do one size smaller, or are you going to go crazy again?
I don't know. You know what? Let's do this one really little again. Let's do that. So let me make sure that that's kind of eyeballed. Line it up and stitch it. I like that, getting some variations in there. Kristina always has good ideas. Okay, we're going to do this one really small. We're going to do the 1.5 inches over here. So we're going to stitch along and pop that in there. And then this last one, I'm going to do that 1.5 inches again. No, you know what? I'm actually going to put one that's a little bit bigger over this one.
Ooh, and it won't be the whole thing because you'll hit the green.
Exactly. I'm going to have to come over here and stop. So it will make it look even more random. So, okay. Let's cut that. I'll cut that thread, and you guys can take a look at that. I think that's going to be really fun going across there. It'll just be a little bit of an exercise in having fun with that ruler, playing with all the different shapes that I can do. I think that's kind of fun, don't you?
So when you're in one of those moods where everything has to be lined up perfectly, you do this bottom half, and then later on when you feel like being funky, do the top half.
Do the top half. I really like that. Okay, that's awesome.
Fun.
That is really fun. All right, let's move on to my last ruler that I'm going to do here. Okay, so this is the ripple wave, and I'm going to use the curve that's on this side, not this shorter, closer, deeper. I don't know. We're going to use this outside one.
The shallow one.
Yeah, and I'm going to do it to create some channels in here that I'll come back and put a design on the inside. So let's go over to the board and I'll show you how I'm going to create this one. I'm going to start with my 2 lines.
Ooh, that one was pieced really well.
The more I draw, the better I'm getting. Okay, this one, the first one I put in, I'm going to want to have the stitching come down and actually touch this stitch line right here. So I need to make sure that at my lowest point, when I position this, I'm 1/4 inch away from that. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch along there like that. And when you're stitching with this ruler, you come to where there's actually a line that says needle stop right there. Here, let me get that so you can see where it says needle stop. So you stitch until your needle hits, you stop right above where that line says needle stop. Then you reposition your ruler to that needle stop again, and then you continue stitching. And that makes that line continuous and perfect all the way through. So I would go ahead and stitch all the way down with that one, then I will come back. What I'm going to do is shift up, and using the line that's etched right there, I'm going to lay that right on top of the line that I just quilted. And I will stitch there, and it will give me a 1/4 inch channel between those 2 lines. Okay? If I line up exactly on that line, it's going to be a 1/2 inch channel. If I want to do a 1/4 inch channel, I will actually line the edge of the ruler up on that stitch line. So just remember that if you want a 1/2 inch or if you want a 1/4 inch.
Perfect.
You got 2 options. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll come down here, go up, and then I will do the same thing on the other side. So let's do a little draw here. And I'm gonna try to match up the 2 lines as much as possible. So I wanna start at the same point down here. And then once again, I'm doing the bigger channel. I'm actually gonna stitch the 1/4 inch when I do it, but I think it's a little easier for you all to see if I do the farther one. Okay, once I've done that, now I've got this great space here in the center to fill in. I love to fill this in with wishbone. So we'll just come in here. Oh, wishbone. I have to think.
The wishbone is such a great design because you can fit it in anything.
And I can do it really tight, or I could go bigger and looser, and it still looks good no matter what I do there. So I love that design. That's fun. And if I feel like I need a little bit of an extra filler, I can even come along here and maybe just do some little up and down lines to fill in that space on the outside, if I choose to.
Yeah. On our first video, you talked about wanting to keep the density kind of the same throughout the whole quilt.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see what you end up doing on the actual quilt.
I know, we'll have to look and see if that's too dense or if I just want to have a little bit of a wider channel right there.
And also to see which kind of wishbone, if you do the more dense or more spread out.
My guess is I'll probably do some of both, just depending on where I'm quilting. All right, well, let's take this one back over to the quilt. Okay, I've got my ruler, my ripple wave here at the machine, and once again, I'm using that same thread again. So I'm just gonna come here and get started again. I'm gonna start right in this corner, bring it up, do my tie off, and then I'm ready to start quilting. Now, as I'm lining this up, here's a little tip. So as I stitch across here, as I move across, even though I'm going to be really particular about stopping right where that says that needle stop, I might shift just a little bit as I go. So I want to mark the centers of these, so as I'm stitching the top one across, I know kind of where to line up that center, because you can always adjust just a little bit from side to side to make up for that. So I'm going to line up my ruler here and just make a little mark up here, maybe about an inch away.
So you're marking the very top of the hill?
Very top of the hill, yep.
So when you come back with the ruler on the opposite side, you've got the top of the hill to line up your ruler with.
I can look at it there and I can make sure that I am lined up.
Fabulous.
So that's really good. So for those of you that like to mark as you're going, it's a good tip to do that. So.
And that's a water soluble marker.
Yes.
Test it before you.
Always, always. And this is definitely a quilt that's going to be washed, so I know these will come out.
Okay.
At some point. Okay, so as I'm lining this up, I'm going to make sure that I'm straight across with my seam here with one of these guidelines here, and then I've got that dip down. I'm making sure that I'm just lined up all the way across with my needle right there. Okay.
One of the biggest things that I see people having issues with this particular ruler or any of the waves is they try to line up the valley, the bottom part, right on the seam.
Right.
But then you're not going to hit that seam when you're stitching because of that 1/4 inch.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
That was good information there.
It's very good information. So we're going to go ahead and stitch across here. Now, another pointer, I don't want to stitch farther than my hand. So when I hit this, like this low point here in the center right here, I'm actually going to pause and readjust my hand, because over here, this isn't on top of the ruler base. So I've got to have my ruler be nice and steady right here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do some stitching up, and I'm going to come down to that center and stop, keeping it where it was, and adjust my hand. Come to that needle stop position right there, and then slide it over, and I'm going to grab my marking tool again and go ahead and mark right up here. Once again.
Sorry, handlebars are getting in the way.
No, that's okay. we're not usually this cozy when I'm quilting, so it's always a little different when we're trying to film. But we want you to really be able to see what I'm doing here. So we're going to come to that bottom. I'm going to move my hand over.
The things that we do for our viewers.
I know, and we're going to come right there to that needle stop. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this channel back. I'm not going to quilt all the way across right now, so I'm just, because I'm lazy, I'm just going to go ahead and stitch a 1/4 inch up. I'm okay if there's a little bit of a seam right there, it's just fine. Now because I want to do a 1/4 inch channel, I'm going to line up the edge of the ruler with the line that I just stitched.
Okay, so I see the line that you just stitched. Now you're pushing the ruler up.
Now I'm pushing the ruler up right against there, and I'm going to stitch back. And once again, I'm going to come to that in the center, move my hand over, make sure it's adjusted where it should be, and then I'm going to quilt to that needle stop position, move my whole ruler over, and snug it right up against that line.
And this is also a good time to make sure that the heel is still matching up.
And I've got that reference point right there to make sure that my center is still lined up. Come down to that center and move my hand over. I was a little bit closer on that one, but that's okay. Nobody's going to see that except everybody that watches this video, so it's all good.
Element.
Okay, now I'm going to stitch up right here, just in this stitch, and I'll show you how I'm going to do this along the top. So because this is straight and I'm just pushing back, I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. You guys can kind of see, depending on how adventurous you're feeling, sometimes you'll get a ruler out for that, sometimes you don't. Okay, so once again, I'm looking to hit these registration marks that I have right here. And I'm lining up that line with the seam right there. So.
And now you've got the ruler behind the foot.
Because I need the wave to go in that direction. So, okay, move my hand over here.
Sometimes people get stuck in having the ruler in the front for everything. Nope, it goes everywhere.
This is definitely a design that kind of forces you to put the ruler behind because it's the only way I can accomplish this design with this particular foot. Okay, once again, I'm going to line up my registration marks. Make sure that those are lined up, that one right there. Okay. Come down to that center point, readjust, make sure that one's where it should be. And go ahead and go up and down to that needle stop. And once again, I'm going to just stitch up that 1/4 inch, and I'm going to adjust everything up and then go ahead and stitch back again. Stitch to that center point, move my hand, stop at the needle stop, move my ruler over, line everything up where it belongs, and stitch. And we'll do that last little bit right here. All right, so now I've got my 2 channels that go in and out. And you know how we talked about whether to put a design in here? I'm thinking I don't need to, especially when I look at my arches I've got up here. I think it's pretty good. So now I'll just go through and do some wishbone in here. So let's think for a second. Okay, wishbone. Okay. I'm going to come down a little bit and go up and down. And I'm almost touching that line that I quilted, but not quite. And I'm doing it a little looser because I don't want the quilting to be too dense throughout the whole quilt. This is another instance where you could put on one of the echo feet to make sure you're keeping that space nice and consistent.
Yeah, I always think about the angle that I come out of, like on the straightaway. Am I at 45 or am I at a 30, 60? And that kind of helps keep things...
Keeps things straight, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clip this here. And we'll scoot the machine over here out of the way. And you guys can kind of see, so I've got some fun ideas rolling here with rulers, putting some fills in there. I think that's really fun, the little channel. And then I'm gonna go back and finish doing the stitch in the ditch, but that's the beginning of my ruler ideas. We'll see what other fun rulers I decide to play with as I continue to work my way through this quilt. I've got a time lapse here of what I actually did, so let's take a look.
That is so much fun.
It is.
I'm wanting to get on the machine now.
I know. It makes you want to quilt. I'm watching it. It's making me want to quilt.
It doesn't take much to make us want to quilt.
No, it doesn't. Very, very true.
Perfect. So thank you for joining us. We had lots of fun showing you some rulers and sharing some tips and tricks. And make sure that you stay tuned so that you can see some of our Instagram quilts. And then also make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And have fun quilting this week.